It is one of the biggest unions in the fucking U.S. 14,000 air traffic controllers in the country.
Wow.
And they all pay into this union.
Yeah.
And the union has a voluntary thing called the PAC. If you did not participate in that, people would fucking shun you in the hallways, in the break rooms. They wouldn't fucking talk to you. Everyone was pressured into like participating with the PAC.
Right.
You would volunteer a portion of your paycheck into this PAC. Some people would put $100 a paycheck. Some people would put like $600 a paycheck. Think about 14,000 air traffic controllers paying into this PAC. Let's just say the average controller puts in, let's just say $150 a paycheck times 26 paychecks a year. That's $3,900 a year times 14,000 controllers. Let's just say 12,000 of them contribute. That's $46 million a year. Times 4, that's $187 million that the Air Traffic Controller Union, which is called NACA, National Air Traffic Controller Association. I'm spitballing that money. It could be more than that. It could be a little bit less. They are donating to the Democratic presidential runner-up. So in 2008, when Obama won, that PAC donated to Obama's campaign. Guess what they do as soon as they get elected? They fucking go in the office and they give all the air traffic controllers pay raises.
Wow.
How fucking corrupt is that? All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, we got a little rainfall outside here in San Diego for probably the first time since maybe back in March. And excited because we got a big weekend. We got our mastermind community, some of our investors out here in town for our retreat. And just ripped a workout this morning with our guest, and excited to bring him on. I got someone who specializes in the gym industry, entrepreneur, real estate investor. I got my man, Bo DePaoli. Bo, welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, buddy? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude. Appreciate you coming on, man. We first freaking connected out in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I believe it was for IMN when I was investing in apartment buildings in a big multifamily conference out in Atlanta back in, like, I want to say 2021. And John Azar was out there.
Yep.
John's a dog. Love Johnny.
Yeah, he's the man.
And yeah, we connected. We all went out to dinner and hung out for the weekend, man. That was the first time we like really connected. We stayed in touch. And now you're out here in San Diego, man, hanging for the weekend. We just got a lift in this morning at the compound. And dude, I'm a big fan of everything you're doing. So appreciate you coming on, brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude.
That was actually the first big conference post-COVID. Remember that? That was like, there was the first conference that like lit off.
It was right
Everything
after COVID.
was closed, and
Yes.
then that was the first one.
Yeah, and dude, I every time I go to these conferences, I don't care if it's like a multifamily conference or a different asset class, whatever it could be entrepreneurship. I always meet a couple like really good connections, and you were one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
And is that when you met John?
I met John before that. I met John the year prior. We started working together a year prior, and then, like I said, that's when they started to do a lot of these conferences again. Things started to open back up, and then that's when we connected.
Got it. So you got a big story, but one of the things that I find intriguing about your story is really getting into the gym industry, operating, managing gyms out there in Chicago. What is it like being a gym owner?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I think most people don't understand how much work goes into a gym and how many facets to a gym there is. It's more than just selling memberships. There's a lot to running a gym,
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge in your estimation?
Nowadays, it's the gym industry has changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years because there's so much competition now. So you have to really set yourself apart from everybody else. 10 years ago, that's when Planet Fitness started to really rock, right? And they were building everywhere. They're growing, and they were clubs that would have 10 to 15,000 members per club. And they would gobble up a lot of your membership base, right? And now that they're starting to level off a little bit, there's all these other little nuanced brands that are coming to the market. And I always say it's kind of like having Walgreens and CVS on every corner. I feel like gyms is almost the same thing nowadays,
So you're saying there's more supply of gyms now than there was 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah, but the ironic thing is that, here's a stat for you. It used to be that you would take your 3 to 5 mile demographics population, and typically 20% of that population would typically join a gym. They would utilize a gym. But Planet Fitness has actually pushed that percentage higher.
Why?
I think because they appealed to people that were scared of gyms, that were worried about stepping into a gym and being judged, hence their non-judgment zone is their big brand. And so they got a lot of people into their clubs that way because people didn't feel as intimidated by that brand. So that allowed a higher percentage of that demographic to join a gym now.
Is that because the demographic that works out at that gym is like less in shape? Is that part of it? Because I do know, like at Compound, for example, a lot of people are more intimidated to go in there, especially if it's their first time, because generally speaking, people are more in shape there than they are at like a Planet Fitness or maybe like a 24-hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say it's kind of like the preschool of gyms, right? It's your stepping stone. You go
Planet
in
Fitness.
there, yeah, you get your feet wet a little bit. You kind of understand what to do, you know, lifting some weights. They don't have a lot of free weights. It's mostly machines. And so that non-judgment feel kind of breaks the barrier, breaks the ice for people to actually get into the fitness game, right? And then from there, they might graduate and they might go to a different brand, you know, maybe a YMCA or an Anytime or maybe my brand, something like that.
Yeah. How much of it is a factor of like their price point?
That was the big. So it's funny you mentioned that because that has shifted quite a bit since
Really?
COVID. Yeah,
Planet Fitness?
the price point aspect of it, because yes, you're right. Planet Fitness with their $9.99 a month, they would just gobble up everybody around, right? Because it was $10 a month. Nobody really pays attention to $10 coming out of their checking account every month. But what we're starting to see happen now is, since the younger generation is more apt to work out, they want more of an experience than they're worried about price. So they're willing to pay a little bit more for a gym that has cool features and a cool look, kind of like the Compound.
Is that, you think that's because like a function of social media?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, because ever since I rebranded and renovated the gym, like there's tripods all over my gym now. And prior to that, it was never really the case. So everyone's trying to be an influencer now in the gym.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you allow people to work out with their shirt off?
No.
You do not. How come?
Because we have a pretty broad population demographic in the gym. I mean, we have as young as 14 and as old as 80 working out in the gym. And that older demographic, it doesn't sit right with them. You know, when you've got a guy with his shirt off, posing in the middle of the gym, it doesn't sit right, you know? So we're trying to be a brand that we appeal to everybody and make fitness fun. And our biggest thing is just trying to get people, Grit is the name of my brand, Grit Fitness. So we're trying to help people overcome that obstacle of working out and just keep pushing through, keep being persistent, and have some grit to achieve a goal.
Yeah, I love the swag, by the way.
Thanks,
a little black
man.
on black, looking fresh as always. And by the way, you sent some swag over in the mail a little while back. Thank you for that. So, question for you: if someone's listening to this and they want to go start a gym, would you say start something that's going to be on that more economical side, friendly budget, and then sell more memberships, or would you say come in higher ticket and less members?
I think it depends on where you're putting the gym. I think it depends on the MSA that you're working in, that you're gonna build out. Because if you're a little bit more tertiary, you might not be able to grab a large audience of that sexy fitness brand, right? Maybe you keep it a little bit more simple. But like here, like the Compound is successful, right? Like I was just blown away when we went to Compound this morning and you told me that there's a waiting list to get a membership. Like that's, in the gym industry, that's unheard of. Like we will not take your money, right? Like we want memberships. And so for them to have a waiting list just blew my mind. So if you're in a higher dense MSA like San Diego or Chicago, you can get away with a higher price point and have a sexier club. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does kind of make sense. I wonder how much of the wait list is like, hey, like scarcity creates demand, so we're gonna have a wait list, but at the end of the day, like we're not really gonna have a wait list.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like when we were in there this morning working out, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna sign Presley up, and I was like, I'm gonna do it like next time she comes in. We don't have like our wallet and stuff like that right now, and they're like, hey, make sure you put her on the wait list. But then it's like we come back, they know we're gonna sign up anyways. You know what I mean? They've been seeing us come in, so I wonder how much of it is that. But I do know people come down from LA to get day passes on the weekend to work out there. So I go in there on Saturday, and there's all these people that are like, they don't even live in San Diego. They're working out there, which is interesting.
And it's such a simple, it's a very, very simple brand. Simple
Very
gym.
simple,
There's
yeah.
nothing, there's no bells and whistles. It's a little bit of turf and some equipment in a wide open area, right? It's not like my gym where I've got group exercise. I've got childcare. I've got tanning. I've got red light therapy. I've got cryotherapy. I've got personal training. I've got saunas, large locker rooms. There's a lot of moving parts to my brand. But like Compound, it's very simple and straightforward, right? And that's a great sales strategy because it's just, here's what it is, take it or leave it, right?
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think makes Compound a popular gym in your estimation? You worked out there this morning. It's only been open for a year, but it's very trendy. What do you think makes it trendy?
I think the first thing is kind of like what we mentioned earlier. They allow people to take their shirts off, set up tripods, do photo shoots, all that stuff. Secondly, the lighting is good, so it makes people look better than what they really are sometimes.
Yeah, for social media.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think their equipment as well is what probably attracts a lot of people because we're starting to see the pendulum shift the other way in the fitness industry. So again, you look back 10 years ago, a Planet Fitness would open and they would have 120 pieces of cardio equipment. Now, that's not the case. Now, gyms are opening where you want to have as many squat racks and platforms as possible. You're shrinking your cardio footprint. You're adding turf. You're adding a lot more different pieces of equipment that you might not see in a traditional gym like Arsenal, like Prime, and there's a lot of newer brands that are coming to the market as well. So it's not just about having Life Fitness and Precor. It's about having all of these eclectic brands that have these unique little pieces of machines.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You go into Compound, there's no sauna. There's only a handful of treadmills. There's Stairmasters. I feel like a lot of people that strength train, if they're going to do cardio, it's a Stairmaster typically or an incline treadmill. You don't see a lot of people in there running. There's no ellipticals. There's no bikes really. And then it's just straight bodybuilding and equipment and a lot of like free weights, ton of dumbbells and mirrors.
A lot of that too is because just the fitness in general, the science behind fitness has changed so much in the last 20 years.
How so?
It used to be that, people would come in and do 2 hours of cardio and they think that's the best way to lose fat. And that's not the case at all. You should be doing the least amount of cardio possible to lose fat within reason, relatively speaking. Generally, you want to be lifting weights, right? So you want to lift weights to build muscle. Muscle burns calories. Cardio doesn't burn calories. Muscle burns calories. So that's why you're seeing a lot of these gyms add more free weights and equipment because you want to build muscle to burn calories. And then cardiovascularly, you do that at the end of a workout typically. Usually what I tell people is 20 to 30 minutes, low intensity, brisk walk on an incline, just get the heart rate up a little bit. That'll help burn actual body fat and keep you cardiovascularly healthy, right? So the whole science has shifted where you don't need to do hours and hours of cardio to lose weight. You want to build muscle. And I always use this example. If you look at a sprinter versus a long distance runner, what do you see the difference in body type between the two?
Long distance runners are like no muscle, very frail, very lean. And then the sprinters are like a lot of muscle mass and not a lot of body fat and just a much better and stronger physique.
Exactly. So you want to use that same mindset when you're entering the gym. Lifting the weights is going to help you with that sprinter type body. You don't want that skinny fat, right? The skinny fat you're going to get from long bouts of cardio. Yeah. Now, I preface with, I know a lot of women think, oh, I'm going to get big and bulky. No, you're not. You're not. Because during the 80s and the 90s, when you would see all these big, beefy women on magazines covers, is because they were taking
steroids.
Shitloads of exogenous steroids, right? Women don't have the hormones in their body to be able to get like that. They just don't. However, women are more prone to osteoporosis, right? So you want to be able to lift weights to have stronger bones as you age. Same for men too, but more so women. So I always tell people that I work with, hey, come in, 45 minutes of training with weights, and then if you want to do a little cardio at the end for 20 minutes, you'll keep your cardiovascular health, you keep your body fat down, but you're building yourself to get stronger and build more muscle that you could burn more calories.
So those girls I see at Compound that are 5'2" and they're deadlifting 400 pounds, they're on steroids.
You think so?
I don't know. You tell me, because I don't know many girls that are 5'2" that can do that.
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Not on steroids.
Not on
natural.
steroids.
Really?
Yeah. No. I mean, look at the IPF, which is the International Powerlifting Federation, 100% drug-tested federation, tested by the IOC. There's people in there, both men and women, that are lifting ridiculous amounts of weight. the reason that they're doing that is because the training protocols have changed so much as well. Again, science, right? Science has taught us how to program people's weight training to be able to move the most amount of weight, right? Or to build a muscle in a certain way, hypertrophy. And so what you're seeing is, and the Russians actually are the ones that were really good at this 15 or 20 years ago, they would do large amounts of volume, right? Huge amounts of volume at heavy weights. Not a lot of reps, but a lot of sets at maybe 85, 90% of their max all the time. And so they just keep getting stronger and denser and stronger and denser. And there's guys that are 100% drug-free that go into a powerlifting meet and they're squatting over 1,000 pounds. They're benching 600 pounds. They're deadlifting 900 pounds. It's out
and
there.
Completely clean. No steroids.
Completely clean. No steroids.
Really?
Yeah. And I've seen women do the exact same thing at those kind of weights that you're talking about.
Yeah. So on the flip side, I feel like a lot of men that come on this podcast that are 40 and older, that look really good, they look jacked. Every single one of them are like, "Yo, Rich, I'm on the test, and it's a fucking game changer." Mm-hmm. So why is it that a lot of like entrepreneurs and folks that are like lifting that look really good, most of them are on tests, but then these guys that are competing, they're doing 3x, 4x the weight, and they're not on any test?
A lot of it has to do with lifestyle. I mean, entrepreneurs, it's high stress, right? And most of them eat like shit. They don't sleep very well. So that's naturally going to bring down your test levels in your body, right? These lifters, the guys that are actually working out, that's all they do. They eat perfect, they sleep perfect, and they train perfect. So they're putting their body in the most pristine position so that their hormone levels don't really drop like a normal guy in their 40s or 50s will do. Now,
genetics is a
huge
right?
play of it as
Sure.
well. And it is true that as you age, you start to not produce as much testosterone or growth hormone. But again, it's all lifestyle, man. It's all lifestyle.
Have you ever took testosterone booster?
Yeah.
You have. What have you took?
Just regular test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like TRT?
TRT.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When did you start taking it?
That's a good question. I want to
Because once you get on it, it's for life, right?
it's for life. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how long you been on it?
I would say probably maybe 5-6 years, somewhere in there. Yeah.
I was talking to someone at the gym last night, actually yesterday morning, and he's competing in 2 months, so he's training for this competition, and he said he's running like 1,600 right now. Test level. Yeah. He's like, I feel like I could run through a brick wall right now. Mm-hmm. He was fucking dialed. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I don't know what that feels like. I'm getting my blood levels checked next week. I'm curious to see where I'm at. I've never been tested, so I'm curious to see where I'm at. I would imagine I'm probably on the lower end of like normal. I would imagine. So I'm probably, I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if I'm between 350 and 500. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where were you at before, and then where are you now?
150.
Okay. 150?
Yeah.
Fuck. Where are you at now?
I maintain right around 600, 650, somewhere in the 600 to 700.
And what's the biggest difference going from 150 to 600?
Biggest thing is body composition. You get a little bit tighter, right? Mental clarity, fatigue, libido, stuff like that.
Yeah. What about sexually?
Yeah, libido, it does. I mean, if you're at 150, you feel like a woman. Yeah, but I mean, if once you get it up, you start feeling more like a man, where you have a higher sex drive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Interesting, man. Yeah, I'm like, everyone that comes in on the podcast and they're like, "Yo, Rich, like, what are you waiting for? Fucking get on it." They all wish they would have started sooner. So I don't know. Part of me is like, and we were working out this morning. I was talking to you about it. And part of me is like, I want to get on it, but I don't want to shoot myself in the ass twice a week for the rest of my life, because it's like a for-life decision. But you said something interesting. No one's ever told me this. You said, even I had a testosterone doctor on like a few weeks ago. He didn't mention this either, but you said get the pellets. So you inject these pellets once every 6 months, and you don't ever have to like go and do the weekly stuff.
No, you don't. Because as the blood passes the pellets, it's almost like it licks it, right? And so it puts the hormone in your bloodstream. Whereas if you're injecting it weekly, typically what you do is you do 2 injections a week, right, to keep your levels elevated, because you don't want to spike and then drop and then spike, right? You want to keep them more elevated. So with the pellets, it keeps your blood serum a little bit more elevated with testosterone. Plus, you don't have to worry about hypertension. You don't have to worry about giving blood every few months, because if you get on test, you have to start doing that kind of shit too. People don't understand that, because your hemoglobin goes up in your blood when you start injecting tests. So you have higher iron content. So now you got to donate blood. And then, you have more risk of hypertension, so higher blood pressure, because you're volumizing the blood and the muscle with much more water with that exogenous testosterone. Even if you're taking just a TRT amount, a little amount, right, it's still going to happen. But with the pellets, it's less likely to happen that way.
How many pellets do they put in you? Is it like...
I think it's case dependent based on the individual and based on where your blood markers come back at.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like one pellet per week?
No.
Okay.
No.
And how does it work scientifically?
From what I understand is they just kind of do like a little incision, and they take a needle and inject the pellets in there and then close you back up. I don't even think it takes stitches. It's just jab you with the needle. And
Have you done it?
No, I have not
You
done
have not
pellets,
done
but I think I'm going to go that route, just for that exact reason of I'm getting older. I don't want to worry about hypertension. I don't want to worry about having to give blood every few months. So the pellets for me make a little bit more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that I definitely will ask. I'm going to do the blood work first, see where I'm at, talk to the doctor, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, I think I'm 39 now, maybe 40 soon.
Yeah.
I think it's time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone over the age of 35 should start getting their blood work regardless. Get a baseline. Find out where you're at now at 35-ish, as to where your blood hormone levels are at. And then you have at least a baseline to go off of, every couple of years, right? And side note, when it comes to TRT, one thing that drives me nuts in the gym industry is everyone thinks like, you just got to jump on the test, man. You just got to jump on the test. But everyone, they step over dollars to pick up pennies with a lot of this shit.
What do
right?
you mean when you say that?
Because they eat like shit, right? They're going out on the weekends, they're drinking all weekend long, they're not getting good sleep. They're just high stress. All of that stuff is going to make your shit nosedive anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you start with the basics first? Start with getting some good sleep. Start with not drinking every single fucking day or every weekend, right? Start by just making smarter choices with your food, right? Those are the basic things that you can do at home without having to worry about shooting yourself up twice a week, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting because when I did the 76 days no drinking for the first time in my life, back in the spring leading up to the summer, my energy levels were through the roof. I had good sleep. I was working out every day, sometimes twice a day. And I was very dialed, and no alcohol. That was the main thing. I was sober, and my energy levels were through the roof. And then the one thing I noticed when I drank July and August, where my energy levels completely just tanked. And I always thought that was kind of normal. But after doing the 76 days sober, I was like, whoa, this is fucking, I noticed it. That was my biggest takeaway. And then now that I'm like 18 days no drinking again now. Today's day 18, I believe. And my energy levels are right back. So how much of that is the testosterone being affected by the sleep, the drinking, not working out as hard?
Oh, it's huge, right? And plus, alcohol is a depressant, right? Most people think it it makes you happy in the moment, but afterwards, when all of your happy hormones nosedive, right? Like you said, you feel like shit, you're fatigued, you're tired, right? And your alcohol pulls water out of the body as well, right? So now you're dehydrating yourself, and then you're pulling minerals out of your body as well. So that's going to further fatigue things, right? That's what a hangover is, right? It's pulling essential electrolytes and minerals out of your body, is what the alcohol does. So, why constantly submit yourself to that, And I know it's like...
It's the norm with
it's
society.
The norm. Yeah, society. I know. It's the social thing. But I haven't drank in years, and it's not because I was an alcoholic. It's just because I used to compete, right? And I was trying to compete at a higher level. Unfortunately, I just don't have the genetics for a high level, but I was trying to compete at the best I could, and so I just stopped drinking, And I don't like drinking anyways, so for me, it's not a big deal. But it's those kind of things that I think can help change your life for the best, Nothing wrong with having a cocktail here and there, but most people I know, man, like, dude, they're drinking all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I get it. I think for some people, if they can go out and have a cocktail once in a while, or drink a few times a month, I get it. But I think the problem for most people is like if you have a cocktail on Monday, then it's like Tuesday, Wednesday rolls around. Like, I already had one this week. Like, it's not a big deal to have another one, and then it turns into a pattern, And even having 2-3 drinks at dinner, you're not going to sleep as good. The entire next day you're operating at like 70% versus 110%, right? And so if you're having if you're drinking 3 times a week, right, and then the entire next day you're operating at 60, 70%, that's basically half of the work week where you're operating at a limited capacity, and that compounded over weeks, months, and years is the difference between someone making it to the college level and as an athlete and making it to the pros. It's not even close. And so, I don't know. Also, I think for me, like when I'm around the industry scene, right? There's a big industry scene here in San Diego. When I'm around the industry scene and I look around the room, you know, a lot of these people have been partying their entire lives, right? And they're very stagnant. And they're just kind of going through the motions. And yeah, it's fun to go out and party and enjoy every now and then. I totally get it. But for me, I need to be growing and progressing in order for me to enjoy it a little bit. And, you know, a lot of these people are stagnant, and so there's no growth. And so I look around, I'm like, dude, none of these people inspire me, you know? And so that's why it's important for me to realize, you know, there's levels of the game. And under that capacity of always drinking and putting your body through that, you realize, at least I realized, it's kind of eye-opener. I'm like, I have a ceiling of how far I can go. And life is already short enough as it is. And so why would I want to spend the remaining time I have on this planet, it's short enough as it is already, at a limited capacity, never realizing what my true potential is? And that was kind of the breakthrough for me.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Now couple that with food on top of that.
Yeah.
Now you go another level ahead, even more, because food is your body's primary source of energy, right? So if you're constantly feeding your body shit food, you're going to perform like shit, not only just physically, but also mentally and personally with your business and all of that stuff. So I feel it, because I would say that I'm pretty strict with my, I don't want to call it a diet, but my meal planning, you know, the way I eat.
Yeah. Give me a snapshot of what you eat weekly.
I'm pretty consistent. So I kind of do a blended. I started this year. I started doing like a blended carnivore diet.
Okay.
But typically, let's just say before carnivore, I would do 4 eggs, 4 slices of bacon or 4 chicken sausage, oatmeal with some Greek yogurt and berries and honey, and a cup of coffee. That would be my breakfast. And then mid-afternoon, I might have, 4 to 6 ounces of chicken with some rice and some kind of sauce. And then at night, I would have, maybe a steak. I eat a lot of red meat. So maybe some steak or a ground beef, some kind of ground beef meal with rice. And then I might have a snack in the middle of the day too, where the snack might consist of some like grass-fed jerky and some fruit, some kind of fruit. My diet is pretty much the same now. The only thing is I've removed the rice, any kind of starchy carbs, and I've replaced it with honey or natural organic maple syrup that I get sourced locally.
Why did you replace the rice with syrup or honey?
Just to get some more carbs, because the rice or potatoes are your carb source. So I wanted to flip it out of a starch and move it to a honey or syrup to see what it would do. And I felt amazing that
Really?
way. Yeah, I did.
What's the biggest difference?
I think the biggest difference is you ever like eat a big meal or just a meal in general, and then you kind of feel like sleepy and
Yeah, you want
tired?
to take a nap.
Yeah, you want to take a nap. I would not get the insulin spike when I switched to honey and syrup on my meals like I would with rice or potatoes. So that was a huge game changer for me. But going back to what I was saying a minute ago, most of these guys are, they're not eating that way. They're either grabbing fast food or they're grabbing something quick at Starbucks or trying to field the day with a coffee or several coffees or energy drinks, which are terrible for you.
I got my black coffee right here, man.
Good.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I'm big on diet. Don't get me wrong. I might have some cookies or brownies here and there, or maybe get some Five Guys. But I'm not consistent. I'm 95% consistent with my diet in terms of that discipline, right? And I think that's a huge game changer in the in life as well.
So it's interesting you eat a lot of red meat.
Yeah.
I recently started eating a lot of red meat, and I know everyone's metabolism is probably a little bit different, but for me, when I eat red meat, I feel really good.
Yeah.
And so I know other people that they say they don't feel good when they eat red meat. Why is that?
Man, I think that's so.
Or do you think that's mental?
I think it could be mental. I think it'd be subjective.
Yeah.
Right.
Vegans will tell me, "Oh, I don't feel good when I eat meat."
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay,
I know.
well, is that a real?
It's kind of
thing,
like cognitive bias, right? I mean, who knows? Some people might have some legitimate like allergens or what you will to red meat, but typically speaking, red meat has the fullest spectrum of minerals and vitamins compared to chicken or fish. They have the highest acid profile as well. Red meat has creatine, right, which is really good for muscle recovery. And now they're finding out that creatine is very good for brain function as well. They're starting to do tests to see that creatine helps with Alzheimer's and dementia as well. So
Really?
yeah. So
I'm taking 5 grams a day now.
Are you?
Yeah. So like when I wake up in the morning, and tell me if I should be doing it another way. I'll wake up in the morning and I typically will fill up my like container for the gym, my little water bottle. I'll put about 32 ounces of water in there. I'll do 1 scoop of liquid IV sugar-free, and I'll do 1 scoop of creatine, about 5 grams. I'll shake it up. I'll bring that to the gym with me. I might eat a banana on the way to the gym, but typically I work out on an empty stomach because I work out first thing in the morning, and then I'll do a protein shake right after. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
My thing is like what I tell people when they ask me for diet advice or just meal prepping in general is like, look, you're not trying to get in the Olympics, right? So meal timing is not that important. It's more about getting the calories in throughout the day, right? So if you can get all your calories in one meal in the day and you can eat all that in one sitting, do it. But if you want to break it up amongst 2 meals, 4 meals, whatever, make it work for you. Because it's not like you're trying to be some Olympic athlete, right? Where meal timing actually does make a difference, right? The biggest thing is get at least 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein. Make sure you're getting enough dietary fat as well, you know?
What is that?
Dietary fat is like anything that's fatty in your food. So like egg yolks, salmon has high quantity of dietary, avocado, yeah, that kind of stuff. That's good for hormone production in the body, right?
Really? That will boost your test?
Well, I don't know if it would actually boost your test, but again, if you're getting enough dietary fat in your diet, it's going to help your overall hormone profile in general. Because think about it, if you're eating like shit and now you start eating like you should be, now you might start actually performing better because your hormones are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Remember, calorie is just energy, right? And so if you're not taking in enough calories, that means you're not having enough energy. So here's a general rule of thumb. Now, keep in mind, this is very general, right? General rule of thumb, take your body weight. So how much do you weigh, Rich?
185.
Okay. Add a 0 to that. That's 1,850 calories that your body needs if you laid in bed all day just to function.
Not even moving. Just
not even moving.
Damn.
That's what it takes for your heart to beat, your muscles to contract, your brain to function.
Fuck.
Generally speaking, right? Now, you got to add in your activities on top of that, right? So if you're working out, you're moving around all day, right? That might be another 5 to 1,000 calories on top of that, depending on what your metabolism is doing, right? Most people are probably only getting half of their base metabolic rate, right? Because they live off of coffee, energy drinks, or just shit food in general, right?
What do you mean when you say they're only getting half?
So if your base is 1850, if you actually counted your food in the day, you're probably only getting maybe like 900, maybe 1,000 calories a day if you add it up. Okay. Depending on what you're eating. Now, if you're going to eat fast food all the time, right, one fast food meal could be 2,500 calories or 2,000 calories, but it's an imbalance of macros, right? It's not enough protein for your body to recover because that's the main treatment of protein is for your body, helps body recover. Carbs is main energy source. Fat is good for joints and hormone and cholesterol production and all of that stuff. So if you're not getting a balanced amount of macros throughout the day, you're not going to perform well, and your metabolism is not going to perform at the best, right? So think of it this way. When someone comes to me and they want help with their diet, right, the first thing I do is I just set them at a base level, right? You can't walk into the gym and expect to bench 400 pounds right away, right? You got to start at 100 pounds and then work your way to 400. Well, the metabolism is the same exact way. So we're going to start you at maybe 1,500, and then you're going to work your way up. So prime example that I always give is a girl came to me when I first bought the gyms, wanted help losing weight. She was over 300 pounds, you know, so I helped her with meal planning. I helped her lose 100 pounds, and she was eating 4,000 calories a day. Damn. But we had to ramp up to that, right? I couldn't take her straight to 4,000. I had to start her at 1,500 or 2,000, and then every week we were notching it up as long as her body was responding, right? So so
she's eating 4,000 calories a day and still shredding all that weight.
Correct.
How does that possible?
Because it's your metabolism, right? So if your metabolism likes to stay like this, right, kind of even level, what we want to do is we want to keep shifting that level of metabolism up. And you do that by manipulating the food and increasing calories over time, because the metabolism needs to catch up to the amount of calories. If your metabolism is way down here, right, because you're eating like shit and you're only eating 1,000 calories a day, if your metabolism is way down here, but you're eating this many calories, that delta is what's going to give you fat, right? You're going to start storing fat. So what we got to do is we got to shift the macros, to try and get that metabolism to start moving up to your actual base rate. And then over time, each week, we start bumping it up as long as you're dropping weight or your body's responding well.
So you're training your metabolism to burn more calories per day.
Yeah.
And how much can you move that needle? Because obviously I know if you build muscle mass, you can burn more calories at rest, right? What's the theory they say? For every pound of muscle that you build, you're going to burn another 3,500 calories a day per rest. And okay, and that is 3,500 calories. Does that equate to 1 pound of fat?
Yes.
It does. Okay. And so
3,000 somewhere in there.
And so let's say someone's metabolism at rest is burning 1,000 a day, which you said 1,800 is normal.
If you weigh like 180, 185.
Well, let's say for a girl that weighs 120, what would be normal?
So generally speaking, she's probably 1,200 calories is where she should be starting off.
So someone's at 1,200, and you want to get them up to 4,000 burn. How do you do that?
So what I usually do is we'll start at 1,200, and then the next week we weigh. I'll have her weigh herself, right? So I always have people weigh themselves the same day every week in the morning after going to the bathroom. So your dry weight, okay? If the weight drops from the prior week, we're going to increase calories. If the weight stays the same or increases, you hold. You hold the calories until the weight starts dropping. When the weight starts dropping, you add a little bit more calories. Every week, you keep doing the same thing over and over and over. So you might be increasing maybe 50 to 100 calories every week, and over time, you're going to go from 1,200 to 4,000 calories very easily.
And so how much of it is like your metabolism being like, okay, I am seeing an increased load or intake of calories, and so I need to shred more in order to digest all the calories that are being put in? Or is it more so a function of like, hey, I need to train harder, I need to burn more calories out when I'm working out?
Well, I would not take somebody to 4,000 calories if they were not training at all, right? Because obviously you're not going to be burning the calories to begin with, right? If you're just sitting at home and doing nothing, that needle's not going to move very far every week. But if you're training hard, that needle will move very fast, because the more you train, the more your metabolism is going to be burning, because it needs calories to repair itself, the body to repair itself.
Yeah. Hey guys, real quick, the only way the show grows, the only way we continue to bring on bigger and better guests is if you guys rate, review, and share the show. So if you could take 2 seconds or the click of the thumb to review on Apple or Spotify, it will mean the world to me. But more importantly, we'll be able to reach more entrepreneurs and more real estate investors and help them build wealth through this podcast. Now back to the show. You mentioned getting on the scale, same day of the week, same time, dry weight. These UFC fighters, these MMA fighters, I'm always impressed with these weight cuts. So like, for example, like the 155 weight class, lightweight, a lot of these fighters walk around, naturally 185, 190, but then they're fighting at 155. I've heard guys like Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway, they'll show up fight week sometimes, like especially if they get called in for a last minute fight as like an alternate, and they might show up. I mean, Dustin Poirier said on a podcast with Joe Rogan, he's like, dude, one time he showed up to at fight week at like 188, ended up fighting at 155. Like, how the fuck is that? How does that happen physically?
A lot of that is water manipulation, because you figure they're like 80, what is the stat? Like 80% of the body is water or something like that. So they're just manipulating water in the body. They're trying to dry the body out to be able to get down to that way. Like Rogan even says, it's sanctioned cheating, right? Because it's 24-hour weigh-in. So you could weigh in at 155, but 24 hours later, you're going to be right back at 185, 190, So like he's right, it's sanctioned cheating, and it's not good to drop your weight like that. Like I've seen guys like drop, like they'll have like heart problems when they go to weigh in, or, they're getting ambulances called because they're so dehydrated. It's not smart to do that. However, at the pro level, at that level, those guys have nutritionists that really know their shit and know how to manipulate the body, like, safely. But a lot of these guys coming up that can't afford a nutritionist, man, it's dangerous, man. Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. It's bad.
Because I've seen like some behind the scenes like YouTube footage of these fighters when they're doing the big cuts. They're in the sauna for 20 minutes. They'll come out, wrap themselves in towels, sweat it out, and then they'll get in the jacuzzi for 20 minutes, get out, wrap themselves in towels. They'll weigh, like, okay, we got a little bit more to go, and they just do this over and over and over. And they just look fucking weak. lightheaded, dizzy, can't even stand up on their own. They got to have people hold them up while they basically walk onto the scale.
Because they're pulling all that water out of their body. They're sucking all of that subcutaneous and intracellular water out of the body to try and make weight.
And then to think they basically dehydrate themselves to the point of like almost death, and then 24 hours later they're fighting in an octagon, in a cage, prize fight.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy, man.
It is. But those guys got to do what they got to do, right? I mean, they got a lot on the line. They got their brand on the line. They've got, the UFC behind them. I mean, that's big deal.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it is like, because I know there's a lot more education and like, movement around this whole topic, but I wonder how much, the weight cut to get to 155, it's like, well, why not just fight at 170? And you just have like way more energy, be stronger. Your body didn't go through hell to get there.
I've had conversations with fighters about that.
Yeah.
The problem with that is the guys that fight at 170, they're coming down from 220.
So it's a much bigger dude.
It's a much bigger dude. Yeah. Much bigger dude.
Yeah, that's the problem. So you'd almost have to do the weigh-in like right an hour before the fight for that to work, right?
Yeah. Well, so like I compete in jiu-jitsu, right?
Okay.
When we weigh in literally right before we step on the mat.
So there's no cuts.
If you're cutting, you got to maintain that cut all the way up until you get to the mat. Yeah. You can't cheat. There's no 24-hour weigh-in. There's nothing like that. So
You think UFC would ever go that direction?
I don't know.
It's entertainment at the end of the day, right?
It is. Yeah. And you figure, like you just said, most of those guys that are getting down to 155. I mean, have you ever seen the video of some of those fighters that they're literally holding him up on the scale?
Yes.
They'll let go for a second to get weight, and then they're grabbing him again.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine doing that like 2 hours before the fight? The guy, like, he would just collapse in the ring. There's no way.
There's like some old footage of like Conor McGregor fighting at like 145, and you can see him like weighing in. You don't even recognize him.
Yeah.
He just like fucking looks like a skeleton.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
It's crazy business.
I wanted to go out to Vegas for that fight they just had at the Sphere. It looked so sick,
It looked
man.
insane.
Yeah. Next time they do that, I want to go out.
That was actually supposed to be McGregor's fight, right? And then he ended up having to back out.
Well, let's see. He was initially going to fight end of June, with what's his name, Michael Chandler, and then that he fell out. And then you were saying they were going to rebook him for this one?
I thought he was supposed to be in the Sphere. I could have swore.
That would have been fucking dope.
Dude.
Yeah.
But, dude, that guy's got hundreds of millions now. Like, he doesn't need to fight.
You think he'll ever fight again?
I don't see it. I mean, if he does, it'll be like an exhibition.
Yeah.
You know? Why? Dude, he sold his liquor brand for what? Like $600
million.
And then he's got all this other shit that he's into? I mean, why?
Yeah. It's almost like too much to lose to get in there and fight, but I don't know. I mean, the Chandler fight was supposed to happen. I think they're still like talking about doing something, but I could see him not fighting again. I went to his last fight in Vegas. It was Dustin Poirier 3, and it was kind of a bummer because fucking end of the first round he snapped his leg and that was it. You never want to go to a fight and then you never want to see a fight end like that as a fan, but that was the last time he fought, and if you think about it, that was like 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, and you got to think. I'm sure that sits in the back of your head. Right, when you snap your leg like that and you want to go and do another fight. Mm-hmm. But again, that's the difference between the 1%ers and the general population, right? Those guys are just crazy that they don't give a shit.
It's almost better off for his brand to like not come back and maybe just like have some rumors about coming back. You know what I mean? Like he did with Chandler, just to stay relevant, top of the news. And then like he's not gonna like put his brand at risk of coming in there and getting KO'd again. You know what I mean? Because I could easily see someone that's active. I mean, fuck, you don't fight for 3.5 years and you get in there with someone that's active. I mean, I don't care who you are. It's the reaction time and all that. It's all about the reps and the at-bats. I mean, every fucking aspect of life is about that. He's probably like 33 now.
Yeah, so he's still in his prime. But, dude, like once you get over 35, like you said, your reaction time goes down. Your cardio goes way down. Like me, like I'm mid-40s, right? So if I'm rolling with somebody on the mats that's 20 years younger than me, it's night and day. Like some 20-year-old, they're like the Energizer Bunny. It could keep going, I've got to like lock them down to make sure they can't move, just so I could try and keep up.
Yeah.
So
it would have been interesting to see, like, because he made a big run in the UFC, and it was when he came off of the Diaz 2 fight. And then after that, he fought for the 155 belt against Eddie Alvarez in New York City at the Garden. And then after that, he went and fought Floyd. And then he took a big break after that and then came back and fought Khabib. loss, but he had like 2.5 years off, 2.5 years off, and then went in there and fought Khabib, who's never lost a fight ever.
Yeah. And Khabib had it out for him too.
Had it out for him.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like backstory with that fight, a lot of like anticipation.
Yeah.
And then after that fight, I don't think he fought for a little bit, and then it was I want to say it was who was the Cowboy Cerrone?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got KO'd.
Yep.
And then Poirier again.
Yep. Yep.
So if you think about it, it's how many losses with that? Poirier twice. He beat Cerrone, but Cerrone was at that time not in his prime.
No,
the dude was
he
like
was older.
Older.
Yeah.
And you could tell his reaction time. He didn't have it anymore. And then Khabib. So he's lost 3 of his last 4 UFC fights, and then the Mayweather fight. I don't think I count that. But
that was
a money.
That was a money
grab.
That was a money thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's interesting to see, dude, like, it would have been interesting to see had he, like, stayed active after the Eddie Alvarez and just kept fucking competing and kept fighting, what would have happened. But I think he did the right thing. I mean, there was a big money grab thing with Mayweather, had 2 belts in the UFC, and he was pumping the content. His brand was at the top, and then did the proper 12 deal and really capitalized on the branding opportunity.
He was smart, because how many other fighters are doing that? Not very many.
I was fortunate to hang out with Ryan Garcia. This is back in Miami, like February of last year. I was out there in Miami for like a speaking engagement with Jordan Belfort, Wes Watson, and I was hanging out rooftop after the event at this like spot. And the Bomarito brothers, who I'm friends with, they're here in San Diego. They do like really badass art. They do like the artwork for our hotels and stuff, but they're very well connected. They know a lot of people. And so they were out there with me, and they were like, hey, we're hanging out rooftop. They're like, hey, I had a table. They said, hey, Ryan Garcia's going to pop in and hang out with us. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, like 3 security guards pull up. Ryan Garcia and this girl that he's like seeing pull up. We hang out. And next thing you know, Ryan and his girl and the 3 security guards come back to my Airbnb in Brickell. And this dude's like ripping it. Drinking red wine and fucking just having a fucking good old time, smoking weed. Like, and this guy's got a prize fight in like 6 weeks.
Wow.
He's fucking ripping it till 6 a.m. And I'm thinking like, damn. It's funny because Parker, my old videographer, he's like sleeping in the bedroom, and I'm like, fucking wake him up at like 5 a.m. I'm like, hey, get out here. I got Ryan Garcia in the fucking living room. He's like, what the fuck? And the security guards are like, fucking, Parker comes out with his camera, and the security guards are like, put the fucking camera away. They didn't want any cameras.
Really?
I got some shots on my phone of us hanging out. But anyways.
That's what I'm saying. That's a whole nother level. That a guy can go out and party like that and perform at that highest level.
And he was ripping it. And I was like, fuck, like everyone was, I mean, he was a big underdog with that fight. And everyone thought he was going to get his ass beat. And then he came out there and performed. And so that was impressive to see. But what I was going to say is this. I digress. What I was going to say is this. We were hanging out that night, and at that time, Ryan was not really posting any social media content. And I told him, I was like, dude, this fight game, man, it can end at any time. And I was like, you got to fucking pump that content. And we talked about it for a little bit that night. And I don't know if it was that conversation or what, but since then, he's just been ripping the content like Connor did. Connor does a good job of that. And Ryan's just been pumping it ever since. And so it's kind of cool to see. I want to get him on the pod. He follows me on IG. I have his phone number, so I'm trying to get him on. Would love to have a conversation with that dude.
That'd
but
be
he's at the
awesome.
top of the fight game right now.
Yeah.
Coming off that fight.
You know who I really want to see is John Jones. But, you know, he tore his pec earlier this year. So I think he's supposed to
He's
fight
gonna come back and fight?
February, I think. I think is when
He's still not that old.
No. And, dude, that guy
He kind of like a little bit of Conor McGregor, like what could have been.
But he's another one. Like, he's never lost a fight, right?
Yeah.
I think his record is pretty pristine.
He fought Daniel Cormier, 3 times?
Yeah, I think that's
2-1 against Cormier. Did Cormier get him one time?
I don't remember.
No?
No.
He beat Cormier all 3 times. But size-wise, I mean, John Jones, 6'4", fucking ripped.
Now, and he added
Cormier
weight
is
because he's
5'10".
actually working with my old coach. I don't know
Really?
if they're still working together, but he came to my old coach, Stan Efferdine, and came to Stan and was like, hey, I need to put some size on because he wanted to go super heavy, you know? And he performed so well even at that higher weight.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The UFC is interesting because, you got 25, 35, 45, 55 weight class. Then it goes 170, 185, 205. Is there a 225? So it's 205 and then it's heavyweight. So,
It's a big gap.
It's a huge gap.
I mean, just
And
think
so
of from
someone could
185 to 205.
Yeah.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah, and so you see guys at 205, and then it's like you got guys fighting at what? Some of these guys are fighting at what, 285?
Like Francis Ngannou, right?
Francis Ngannou
he's
is
265, I think.
What does he walk around like naturally though?
I'm sure he probably walks pretty close to that.
Yeah, because they don't have to cut to fight in the heavyweight.
No, and he's a freak of nature.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Fucking beast.
He's a freak, man. He's a beast.
Beast.
Have you ever heard his story?
No.
Dude.
What's the story about?
He had to escape Africa like 3 times, and he would get like all the way to like, I think one time didn't he even end all the way to France, and then they dropped him back off in the middle of the desert, and then he walked all the way back to Europe, and then they dropped him back off in the desert again. Like when I say desert, like in the middle of nowhere, and then he walked all the way back to try and get out of Africa. Like he is just like that. That's what I'm saying. When you get to that level, your mental game is just so superior to the general population. Like you just can't beat them. You know?
Yeah. I wonder how much. I always think about this, and I think about this as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I think the best entrepreneurs come from backgrounds to where they were challenged at some point, and they had to overcome a lot of challenges, and also the competitive mindset. So I think that's why you see a lot of like athletes that retire and then they actually become really good in business because they've been so competitive and they're so used to just showing up and pushing through all the pain. And so I always wonder, like, some of these top athletes, like how much of like how they grew up and like the conditions they grew up in have to do with like how far they go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember early on when I first started, when I bought the gyms, I was listening to Andy Frisella a lot. And he always talked about that. The guys that have a chip on their shoulder are the ones that are always succeeding. You know, they got something to prove. And I believe that 100%.
I feel like I've always been competitive and I've always kind of like had a chip on my shoulder. And so I think that's why now I'm like very like everything that we do, I'm like, okay, like how can we get better? Like I don't want to put out a product that's not good.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, so what made you choose, because originally you were an air traffic controller, right? So what made you choose that career path early on in life? What intrigued you about it?
Yeah, so I was always in sales. So my first job my first ever job in high school was at a movie theater. And then I did a little bit of shipping. And my first job when I was 18 in college was in sales. And I was working at a kiosk at the mall selling cell phones. And I remember like I was always like a little bit shy. I was uncomfortable talking in public and like just saying hi to strangers. And so I remember that first job I was very uncomfortable because of it. And it forced me to like get out of my comfort zone and start talking to people. And then I'm very competitive. I grew up playing sports, and so I became like top at sales, selling cell phones. And then I went on after that. A couple of my coworkers were like, "Hey, come over here and sell cars. You'll make a lot more money." And so I started selling cars in college at Mossy Nissan here in Kearney Mesa, San Diego. And I did pretty good at it. And I was very competitive. I was always trying to put up numbers, and that was my thing. And so I graduated college, and I was like working on the car lot, wondering like, and it was 2008. I wanted to go sell commercial real estate. So I interviewed at. I love sales, and I knew that if I sold commercial real estate, there was big commissions. That's all I fucking knew. And so I went and interviewed at CB Richard Ellis and Grubb & Ellis, the 2 commercial real estate brokerages. They had these internship positions at the time, and I just graduated college, and they were like, "Hey, we love your hustle," but it's 2008. They're like, "This is not a good time to get in the industry." They pulled those positions, and I found myself in a car lot, like wondering, like, what the fuck am I gonna do with my life? And I stumbled across a job as an air traffic controller that the FAA was hiring air traffic controllers with no experience. And I was like, I applied through an application, and like they hired me like right away. They're like, "Hey, if you can pass a drug test, we can have you out in Oklahoma City and start you in like 3 weeks." And so I didn't know anything about it other than I knew, the salary was pretty decent. And back then I thought that was a really good salary. Get through training and you can make 6.5 figures, right? Base of like 150, 160. I thought that was really good. And so went and did the fucking career, and I never looked back, dude. I ended up doing it for 11 years, and I fucking loved it, man.
Really?
Like, so many great people.
It's
and
high stress, though, isn't it?
It is high stress, but like I love those kind of like pressure situations, dude. It's like playing a video game, And so you have tower air traffic controllers that sit at the airport towers, and they control the planes to taxi to the gate, taxi to the runway, and they clear them to take off and land. And they basically just run like a 5-mile radius of these airports. Everything outside of that is radar. So you have your approach controllers and you have your radar, your center controllers. And so I did radar. And so there's probably like 30 facilities in the country, these big dark rooms with like 300 controllers that work there. There might be like 50 to 80 controllers on any given shift. And there's like, just think of like 60 radar scopes in big dark buildings. And each radar scope will have a controller there with a headset. And there's like you're just controlling anywhere from, 5 or 6 planes when it's slow to like 30 planes when it's busy. And, you're telling the planes to climb and maintain, descend and maintain, you're turning them, you're issuing speeds. Some planes are coming in to like land at certain airports. And so you might have a group of like 15 planes coming in from different directions. And then you got to fucking sequence them. And so you're pointing them at each other, visual separation, clearing them in, get them all lined up. Once they're lined up, like 3 mile final, then you switch them to tower, and tower will say Southwest 132, clear to land, runway 26 left, right? And they just land them. And so, anyways, I did that for like fucking 11 years, dude, and I loved it. It was so cool. It was engaging. Loved my coworkers. It was fun. And then I just like reached a point where I was like, I didn't feel like I was growing any longer. Mm-hmm. And I overheard a coworker in the break room, and he's like, I just closed on a fourplex in Cleveland, and I thought it was the coolest fucking thing ever. And I was like, how the fuck did you do that? And so he was like, go read this book. It was the Blue Book by Brandon Turner. And it was the Bigger Pockets podcast. And I remember just binging it. And then that was the start of everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because it's such a yin and yang, right? Mm-hmm. Going from sales to now doing air traffic controlling. It's so night and day.
It is. Yeah, air traffic control is not a lot of sales.
No,
it's not.
No, and you're isolated, right?
So isolated.
You're not talking to other people.
Working weekends, nights, holidays, because your schedules are like seniority based, and people that get in that career, there's no attrition. The only attrition is when you wash out. They have a high washout rate. A lot of people don't make it through the training, and because it's not easy. But then once you get through, like you have a lot of job security. It's unionized, and there was a PAC. I don't think I've ever talked about this, but there's what they call a PAC in the union. This is one of the biggest unions in the fucking U.S. And all the air traffic controllers, 14,000 air traffic controllers in the country.
Wow.
And they all pay into this fucking union.
Yeah.
And the union has a voluntary thing called the PAC. But if you didn't buy into this PAC, like they would you wouldn't have any fucking job security. It's kind of an under the table thing. So people would shun you if you didn't pay into this PAC. And so you would volunteer a portion of your paycheck into this PAC. And some people would put $100 a paycheck. Some people would put like $600 a paycheck into this PAC. And so think about how many 14,000 air traffic controllers paying into this PAC. And every 4 years, that money like generates, let's just say the average controller puts in, let's just say $150 a paycheck times 26 paychecks a year. That's $3,900 a year. Times 14,000 controllers, let's just say 12,000 of them contribute. That's $46 million a year.
In a PAC fund.
Times 4, that's $187 million a year that the Air Traffic Controller Union, which is called NACA, National Air Traffic Controller Association, would donate that money. And I'm spitballing that money. It could be more than that. It could be a little bit less. But let's just say $187 million every 4 years. They are donating to the Democratic Party, the Democratic presidential runner-up. So when Obama won, what was that, 2008?
Yeah.
So in 2008, when Obama won, the Air Traffic Controller Union, NACA, that PAC donated a chunk of money, let's say $150, $200 million to Obama's campaign. And so if that Democratic runner-up gets elected, guess what they do as soon as they get elected? They turn around, they fucking go in the office, and they give all the air traffic controllers pay raises.
Wow.
How fucking corrupt is that? I've never talked about this before, but if you did not, as an air traffic controller, you did not participate in that, people would fucking shun you in the hallways, in the break rooms. They wouldn't fucking talk to you, like you were just a piece of meat. So everyone was pressured into like participating with the PAC.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the only reason that they were I don't want to say investing. The only reason that they were donating to the Democratic Party is because it was Democratic Party typically is pro-union,
yes.
Right? Here's the ironic thing, right? Yeah. How much has changed since 2008, let's say.
Yeah.
Right? Is if you look at now, right? I see a lot of unions are siding with Trump now rather than Harris.
Really?
Well, because think about it. When Biden won in 2020, and he was big on unions, right? Do you know what one of the first things he did was when he went into office? And look, I'm not like Democrat, Republican, like I don't side with the party. I'm just speaking what I know.
Totally.
He stopped the Keystone Pipeline, which was 50,000 union jobs, right? And now you've got Trump that's trying to keep
the union jobs.
And not only that, but trying to keep jobs in the U.S. and moving them to Mexico or moving them to India. He's stopping corporations from allowing them to do that, right? It's just so crazy how politics is.
Dude, it's so corrupt
It's
now.
so fucking corrupt, man.
And so you can look it up. 2008, go look it up. Obama took office, and the air traffic controllers got a massive pay raise. I mean, it was not like a couple percent. Mm-hmm. It was like 20 to 23% across the board. Mm-hmm. That's massive.
That's huge.
And now it makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, that's a lot of fucking campaign dollars.
Because now it just funnels right back into the PAC fund.
Campaign dollars, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you were not part of the union, no one would talk to you.
I know.
No one would fucking talk to you.
Yeah.
The people would like spit on you in certain facilities, especially East Coast. East Coast
Yeah.
is very hardcore union. West Coast a little bit more like chill, but if you were not part of the union, people wouldn't even fucking look at you.
Well, coming from Chicago, right, we're very high union. Here's a funny story. So the McCormick Place, that's where they hold like the auto show, the boat show, all those big shows in the city, right? That's very union ran, right? Mm-hmm. Which fine. I'm not talking shit about unions at all. I'm just spitting again what I've heard and what I know. Someone I know was setting up a booth that was selling something at the boat show. Had something to do with something like some dock gadgets on the docks, right? And so he was out there, he was setting up his little tent, and plugging his shit in. And somebody from the McCormick Place came over and said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm just setting my booth up." He's like, No. He's like, "We do that." So he had to pay the union electricians and carpenters to plug in all of his stuff for his booth, or set up a beer style tent, set up a tent. I had to pay these guys like $100 and some an hour to do this just because he had a space there. Like, that's just crazy to me, right? Here you have this small business that's trying to like get his feet wet and start off, and now he's having to pay all this crazy money to try and just set up a simple booth, It's not like it's C-Ray that has these huge booths, right?
Right.
He's selling some little gadgets for a dock,
Yeah.
It's crazy. And on the other side, too, is like we kind of deal with this in the gym industry, not so much the union side, but on the non-for-profit side, which to me, sometimes non-for-profits are just fucking scam, right? Because let's look at the YMCA. I'm not calling the YMCA a scam, but the YMCA's in my area, and I've never talked about this publicly, but
Let's
the YMCA...
I want to hear the dirt.
Okay, so the YMCA's in my area are backed by... First off, they're nonprofit, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't pay taxes, right? They get a lot of their shit donated to them. They are backed by a multi-billion-dollar grant that was set up by a local billionaire in our area, and he wanted his money to go to, some of these special places. But now they're building these monstrous facilities, right? $50 million YMCAs that have indoor, outdoor water parks, and they're still charging dues. They're still charging for all their amenities, but they're getting the land donated to them. They're getting millions of dollars donated to them to be able to build these facilities. They're not paying any taxes, and then they're still charging fees on top of this. Like, how does somebody like me that's a small business compete against that, right? I pay my taxes, right? I'm not getting anything donated to me. And I've got to pay fair wages, all of that stuff, but yet these guys are able to do this kind of shit. I think it's just wrong.
So I've never looked into this, and I've never questioned it until now. But so how did the YMCA first off get to be known as that brand that's like, oh, like we're doing so good for the community? Is it because like they tailor towards kids? Can someone join the YMCA for free?
I think what they do is I don't think they could join for free. But they could join at a very discounted rate because it's based on your income level.
Okay. So give me an example. So let's say the YMCA's got pool, basketball court, gym in, let's say, just say San Diego, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen some of these facilities are pretty nice. Mm-hmm. And so like that equivalent gym in the private sector would probably be like $200 a month for a fucking membership. And you're saying they might be able to join for what? Ballpark.
Say, I don't know, in this area, maybe $30, $50 a month.
That's a bargain.
It's huge, yeah. I mean, by me, like a standard membership at the Y, I think is $60 a month for a family. Right? If you're a low income person, or you know, based on your wage, if you're lower income, you show a copy of your paycheck, you might be able to join for $20 a month for a family, right? Because they're subsidized by, you know, these large grants that they're getting from these funds or from the United Way or anything like that. You know, it's hard to compete against that kind of powerhouse that's still generating revenue and not having to pay tax on that revenue.
Yeah.
You know?
And for like the private business owners like yourselves that own these gyms, I mean, fuck, that's hard to compete. New YMCA goes up next to you, and they're selling $30 memberships, and you get all that.
Right. I always say, like, a Planet Fitness can open up across the street. I have no problem competing against a Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
But if a YMCA that's getting donations to that level, dude, that's hard to compete against. You know, that's a non-for-profit.
And do you, as a gym owner, have any say if like a YMCA just goes up right across the street?
No.
Zero.
No, because I've talked to like local representatives and I've said, like, you know, this is bullshit. You know? And they're like, this is capitalism.
Yeah. I wonder if there's like more YMCAs in like liberal markets versus like conservative markets.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'd be curious. But dude, fucking, you know, I agree with you. This fucking bureaucracy and red tape, you know, it's an interesting topic, but to close the loop with the air traffic control thing in the union, one last thing I'll say is this. If you were in the union would run the fucking show. They would tell the fucking management to fuck off. Like, literally, they would run the show. The managers would be like yes men to the fucking union leaders. That's just how it was. And if you were a union member and you had a good brand, like good reputation, people liked you, you could do whatever the fuck you want to do. Literally, you could do whatever the fuck you want to do. People come in there fucking drunk and fucking control airplanes. They would go get DUIs. They'd be in there on drugs. I know fucking people, I'm not going to say fucking names, but I know people that, you know, come in drunk, get arrested, fucking come in there. Planes are like, they're working on the night shift late on drugs. And the fucking pilots are on radio saying, hey, like, go back to the last frequency. Don't fly through this person's airspace because this guy's on drugs. And they're running planes together, like, literally all the fucking mistakes in the book. And these people, because they're in the union, they are no longer allowed to work as air traffic controllers, but they give them cush office jobs downstairs where they're still getting that air traffic controller cush paycheck. You know, they're making $160,000 base salary plus benefits as a government employee. They don't have to ever control airplanes the rest of their lives because they're not safe. They're on alcohol and drugs, and they can't prove that they can come in there sober. And so they give them these office jobs to where no one's managing them. And so these people are working remote. They're like probably putting in 10 hours a week, and they're getting $160,000 base salary plus benefits for the rest of their fucking career to fucking sit at home and work 10 hours a week, if that. And no one fucking talks about this shit. I saw this shit firsthand because I was in it. And I was part of I was like, you know, for a couple years while I was doing that, I was one of the instructors that would train a lot of new students that would come in, and it was like a union position. So I worked with all the back end union people, all the people that got DUIs, all the people that fucking couldn't pass drug tests, all the people that couldn't stay sober. They would be off the fucking floor, they'd be off the books, and they would put them downstairs. And these people would just fucking have these phantom fucking office jobs, stay at home, work remote, take 4-hour lunch breaks, no accountability, nothing. And they're getting $160,000 a year of taxpayer money plus benefits for the rest of their fucking life. And no one fucking talks about this shit. But I'm fucking putting it out there for the first time because I saw it firsthand.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That builds such a toxic work environment.
Yes.
Such a toxic work environment.
So toxic.
That's insane to me.
Bro, people would fucking, this is how fucked up the government shit is. And this is not talked about a whole lot, like outside of people that actually know what the fuck's going on behind the scenes. But people would like fake medical illnesses, and they would hire fucking doctors to say like some fucking random fucking illness that no one's ever fucking heard of. And the government's like, they'd never heard of this, but the doctor's writing some sort of shit, and they'll get like tested. They'll go to these doctor visits, and then the doctor will write some shit after a year, and they're like, hey, like because of this random fucking illness, it's not safe for you to control airplanes. And he'll write it up so like it's framed as like all the stress levels of the air traffic controller caused this illness. And so they'll go to the government and say, hey, I can't work any airplanes anymore. I have this illness because of the job. And they go out on medical retirement. and they'll basically get like 80% of their base salary like the rest of their life to like basically retire. And that's taxpayer dollars just going to this. And a lot of this shit, unfortunately, sadly, I saw it, would be the controllers that were weak. And like for me, I loved working traffic. I was a strong controller. I loved it. I was competitive. Like I loved, like when there's a busy rush and there's weather going on, like you would know who's weak when you walked in and who was strong, because the weak controllers would like, they'd be like, oh, like I'm gonna go work this position, or they would dodge that sector because it was popping off, right? There's weather going on, a lot of planes, and like fucking busy, and they would dodge those sectors. They would manipulate the brake list so they wouldn't have to work those hard sectors. And then the people that were strong, they'd be like, put me in, let's fucking run it. And that's how I always was, because it makes the time go faster, and I'm also competitive. But the people that would fake these medical fucking retirements were the weak controllers, because they were fucking terrified to work. Terrified. And those are the ones that had these medical illnesses, and then next thing you know, like, oh, where's Sally at? Oh, Sally got a fucking medical retirement, and she's only fucking 32 years old. Crazy. Crazy shit.
So
dude.
did you guys get a pension? Or was yours an annuity?
Yes, there's a pension. So if you do 25 years as an air traffic controller with the federal government, 25 years or hit the age of 50. You cannot get hired with the FAA after the age of like 31, and then you're forced out at 56. So I think the idea was if you get hired at 31, you could put in 25 years. It takes like 2 to 3 years to train. And then if you worked till 50 or you did 25 years, you would qualify for a pension the rest of your life. You would get, I think it was about 40 to 50% of your base pay the rest of your life plus benefits. And so I was 11 years in, I was 14 years shy. And at the time, everyone's like, they're like, you're going to throw away that pension.
So you're not vested then?
No, I get a portion of it at age 62.
Okay.
But like, I mean, the best retirement plan to me is to own fucking real estate that pays you every single month. That's the best fucking retirement plan. So for me, I don't give a fuck if I get that money. And who knows that money is going to be there, to be honest with you. There's no guarantee that money is ever going to be there with any pension.
Yeah. I was actually just going to bring that up because, and this is with any union, right? If you don't have as many people coming in or more that are going out, well, now your pension moves out of green status because you're distributing more in retirement than what you're taking in, right? So now the principal balance of that pension starts dwindling, right? So these unions have to have as many or more people coming in. And you're seeing in the last 20 years, skilled labor has gone down.
It has gone down, yes.
And so less and less people are joining unions or doing skilled work, which needs to shift, in my opinion. We need more skilled workers in this country.
Yes. It's interesting you mentioned that. So when I got hired, I paid 1.2% of every paycheck into the pension. And people that were getting hired after me, it went up from 1.2 to like 4.2, and then I think it was 6.2 when I left. So 6.2% of their paycheck, every paycheck was going to this pension fund, depending on when you got hired. So
yeah, because they do those calculations to figure out.
They're like, holy shit, we got a bunch of people retiring, not a lot of people coming in, and so that's what they did. But anyways, I got out of it, dude. I fucking love that job, and there's a lot of those folks invest in me, a lot of great people. But the fucking 10% that work there that dodge, fucking faking medical illnesses, all this bullshit. They can't stay sober, and they're getting all this cush bullshit. That stuff, it doesn't sit well with me.
Don't you think that like that percentage, that 10%, is kind of like pretty standard in any industry? Don't you think that?
Yeah, I would say 90-10 rule applies to every industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're always going to have the fucking douchebags that just are worthless in any field.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. And I think with most industries, there's going to be a chunk of people that are like just the coolest, most grateful, most humble, like inspiring people that just mean really well. And those are the people I like to be around.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when I'm out, like, if you've ever worked in the service industry, you know, whether it's working a front desk or a waiter or a waitress, man, that's, first off, it's hard work. You're dealing with the general public, and sometimes the general public could be real fucking assholes, you know? So it's always good to be nice to those people, you know, be pleasant with them, you know, thanking them. I always try and do that because
I'm the same way, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, these people are like busting their ass for you, you know. Now, granted, like, again, you get those 10%, like, you're just a shitty waiter or you're just a shitty plumber or whatever, right? But generally speaking, like, you want to be pleasant to those people, I feel, because they're working hard.
Oh, dude, 100%, man. They're on their feet. Nurses, people in the service industry, bartenders. And that's why, like, now if I ever see, well, my first judge of someone's character when I meet someone new is how do they fucking talk to people in the service industry. We go out to lunch, we go out to coffee. How do they fucking talk to the server? That's like the first judge of character with anyone. If they can't be respectful to servers, I'm not going to allow them into my circle.
Yeah,
that's like number one.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So when I see, and unfortunately you do see this every now and then, you do go out, like I'll go out and I'll see like people talking down to bartenders being like, you fucked my drink up, like blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, I'll never be around that shit. You know?
I agree 100%.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, anyways, my man, I appreciate you coming on the show, dude. Big fan of everything you're doing, crushing the game. Much respect for everything. Where can the listeners get in touch with you?
Probably best place would be Instagram, @Bo DePaoli. Pretty simple handle.
Yep, there it is. He's Bo DePaoli. I'm Rich Summers. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.